Hi friends, my name is Jess. Welcome to Books Past Bedtime. Today I'm bringing you another installment of reading my friend's favorite books, and featured today is none other than Caroline Johnson. I've been watching Caroline forever since I started my booktube channel, and I just honestly am obsessed with her. She is just a ray of sunshine. She is the sweetest, nicest, most genuine person ever, and I'm just obsessed with her. I love her videos just as much as any other big booktuber. Her energy is just unmatched. I just am so obsessed with her and so thankful to call her my friend. And so today we are going to see how closely our reading tastes align. I would actually say out of all of my booktube friends, Caroline and I have super similar reading taste in terms of like the genres that we like to pick up. Like I would describe Caroline's reading taste as that she likes a lot of thrillers and she likes a lot of true crime. She likes a lot of literary fiction, and I feel like those are the three genres that I also gravitate towards the most, so I feel like that is a good sign for what is to come in this reading vlog, and I'm very excited to check out her favorite books and see how I like them. So right now I have 4 books on my TBR that I'm going to talk about, that I'm going to read throughout this vlog, the first of which is The Simple While by K.A. Tucker. Now you might be like, Jess, you just said that Caroline likes thrillers and literary fiction. This is like a contemporary romance. You're right. But Caroline also really loves this book, so I wanted to give this one a shot to kind of mix it up a little bit. This is, like I said, a contemporary romance. It follows our main character, Calla, who her dad isn't really in her life, but one day she gets a call that her dad has lung cancer and he lives in Alaska, so she goes to visit him to kind of try and make a connection with him before he inevitably passes away. Her dad owns this charter plane company, and while she's up there, she meets this pilot of his named Jonah, and I think like a grumpy, sunshiny romance kind of ensues. And I'm very excited. This is also the pick for the Sugar and Spice book club this month, so 2 birds with 1 stone. I always love being efficient. The next book I'm going to read is Shutter Island. I don't remember who wrote this book. Maybe I should have prepared a little bit before I turned on the camera, but I didn't. I actually don't even know what this is about. I know that it's a really popular cult classic Quentin Tarantino film, but I'm not really sure what it's about. Is it about like an asylum? I think it's horror. I have no idea. I guess we'll find out. I am also planning to read Night Film by Marisha Pessl, which is Caroline confirmed one of her favorite books of all time. So I'm very excited to pick this one up. It was already on my radar, already on my TBR, so it's definitely something that I'm super interested in and really think I'm going to enjoy. This book is about this woman who commits suicide, and her father is like this cult film director. He has this cult following. A lot of his films are banned. They're very graphic, very horrific films in the horror genre, and there's kind of this like cursed legacy surrounding him and his family. So we're following a journalist in this book, and he's really interested in the story of this woman who committed suicide, and he wants to figure out if she actually committed suicide or what happened surrounding that and how her father and his films are involved. This one has like super cool multimedia format stuff, which I'm so into. So I'm so excited to get to this one, and I think I'm really gonna like it. So those are the 3 books that are definitely on my TBR, and then the 4th book is actually one that I've already read, and that is I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. So I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara is a true crime piece of journalism written by Michelle about the Golden State Killer and her quest to kind of uncover his identity and who he was. This book was published after her death, so it does have some contributions from other people, but ultimately it is her story. She had this huge impact on discovering who the Golden State Killer was. She actually dubbed the term the Golden State Killer, and once the police and detectives actually found out the identity of the Golden State Killer, she was kind of written off as not being that helpful in the investigation or anything, when truly she was like the biggest collector and cataloger of data for this case. And she was just really like an incredible woman, and so reading her story was so interesting. This is a very engaging story, and I say that because if you're not somebody that likes nonfiction, this is definitely a good place to start because it very much reads like a story. It was very interesting and entertaining throughout. One thing I didn't really love was how it was organized. It's kind of organized out of order, and it also has a lot of like tangents about Michelle and her family. It was interesting to a point to learn more about her, but sometimes I felt like we got off track of the true line of the story. And in terms of the organization of it, it jumped back and forth from different time periods, and it might have been because I was listening to the audio, but I got a little bit confused every once in a while where we were in the story and in the timeline and what we had figured out already and what we hadn't. So I didn't know that a non-linear timeline was necessarily the absolute best choice, but overall I really enjoyed this book. I've been meaning to read it for a really long time because I'm so interested in true crime, and Michelle McNamara is definitely a very well-known name in the true crime sphere, and she really did have a lot to do with discovering the Golden State Killer, so it was really awesome to read her story, and I rated this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. And the next book I'm going to pick up is The Simple While by K.A. Tucker. I am 50% of the way done with The 𝗬𝗂𝗽𝗏, so let's talk about it. So just as a refresher, The 𝗬𝗂𝗽𝗏 is a adult romance book, and it's following our main character, 𝗬𝗂. 𝗬𝗂 is kind of estranged from her father, but she gets a call saying that he has lung cancer, and so she decides to go to Alaska where he lives and to try and repair this relationship. Her dad in Alaska owns this charter plane company, and one of his pilots, named Jonah, just a thorn in 𝗬𝗂's side. He's grumpy and kind of rude to her, and they just really get off on the wrong foot. She really hates him, but I think that eventually they're going to realize that they really like each other and have a little romance. So at the 50% mark, I am actually liking this pretty well. The biggest complaint that I hear people talk about is that they think 𝗬𝗂 is really annoying, really entitled, just a brat. I'm not feeling that way. Personally, if I was 𝗬𝗂, I think I would be having very similar reactions to her. Yeah, she's a little stuck up, but I don't think there's really anything wrong with preferring a more cushy lifestyle. And also, like, I would also be very upset with my dad for never contacting me ever my entire life, and I wouldn't be like super willing to forgive him. Like, I'd be struggling to forgive him while also like wanting to build a relationship with him, so I totally understand where she's coming from there. And in my opinion, the burden is on the parent to have a good relationship with their child, so I'm on 𝗬𝗂's side in that situation. I mean, hopefully her and her dad can find a way to reconnect, but I don't think it's fair, especially Jonah is telling her like, you're such a brat for never contacting your dad, blah blah blah. And I don't agree with that at all. It's kind of annoying me that he would say things like that, just because I think personally it's on the parent. The burden's on the parent, like I said. Also, a lot of people have pointed out that she is just like very stuck up and not understanding of the way of life in Alaska, and I understand that. At the same time, I don't think that it was like an outrageous thing for her to want soy milk in her latte. Like, she has a dairy allergy, that's what she prefers to eat. It's not like she went to Alaska realizing that they wouldn't have soy milk, and like they don't even give her a chance to like be like, okay, well, what can I do instead? They just attack her for being a brat and wanting soy milk, which, like, I don't know, I thought that was like a really small thing to be annoyed at her over, but whatever. So anyway, I like 𝗬𝗂 a lot. I don't have a problem with her. She doesn't do everything that I would do, but like I feel like I can very much put myself in her shoes and understand why she is the way she is and sympathize with her. Like, I don't really have a problem with the way she's acting. Hey, that's just me. On the other hand, Jonah does kind of annoy me. I think he's kind of a jerk. Like, I understand why he is the way he is too, I guess, but at the same time, like, I think he's just kind of a jerk, frankly. And I don't like how he acts, and I don't like the comments that he's made about 𝗬𝗂, like putting 𝗬𝗂 down for wearing makeup and wearing nice clothes. Like, being interested in wanting to do those things there's nothing wrong with that, and I don't like when characters in books put that down. Like, it's totally fine to not wear makeup and to be like an outdoorsy kind of girl, but there's also nothing wrong with being like a girly girl that likes to wear makeup and clothes, and I don't like making one of those seem better than the other, and I feel like that this book is kind of doing that a little bit, which Caroline did talk about in her video. I know that later on I think Jonah's going to make a big deal about 𝗬𝗂 looking better without makeup on, and I think that probably is going to annoy me because I can already see where that's kind of coming from, but I will just withhold judgment until that happens. I don't really dislike Jonah, and I can see like the little things that he's doing that kind of contradict things that he says, that maybe he's like a sweeter, nicer person than I think right now. I can kind of see where the romance is going to come from, and I appreciate that, because I think sometimes in enemies to lovers they're like too much enemies that you don't see where the romance is coming from, whereas here I can kind of see it, and I'm looking forward to it. I don't feel like I don't really have a lot to say yet. I think right now it's reading as like a 3-star read. It's not anything super special, but hopefully as I get to the ending I will find out why everybody loves it. And I've heard this from a lot of people that like the first half isn't the best, but the ending is what makes everything worth it, so I'm looking forward to reading the last 50%. I will let you know when I'm finished. Last night I did finish The 𝗬𝗂𝗽𝗏 by K.A. Tucker, and I ended up really liking it. As you can see from the previous clip, nobody told me that I was gonna sob, and sob I did, and that end of the book fucked me up. I was crying so hard at the end. I really liked that element in the second half with her dad and just the emotions it elicited. I thought it made it a much more rich and deeper story than just your typical romance, which I really ended up enjoying. In the second half, there's also this fun stranded in an isolated cabin trope that happens between her and Jonah, which I was here for. I thought that was really cute and fun, and I ended up really liking Jonah and 𝗬𝗂's romance. I thought it was really cute, and I really liked them together in the end. And like I said in the first clip, I really related a lot to 𝗬𝗂 throughout. While I was kind of annoyed that Jonah kept telling her that she looked better without makeup and blah blah blah, in his own way he probably thought it was a compliment. I didn't really like that in the end 𝗬𝗂 decided she was better off without the makeup, because I just don't like the idea that you're better or worse for wearing makeup or not wearing makeup or whatever. I don't like that comparison, so that was the only thing that I didn't really like. Jonah also really got on my nerves. I did like their banner and I liked that Kala gave it as well as she got it, but at the same time I did think Jonah was like a little bit of a jerk from the beginning. So I definitely warmed up to him and I could see how he was sweet underneath that hard exterior. Especially the cutest thing he does is he like gives Kala such shit for wanting soy milk in her latte, but then he like goes up to Anchorage specially to get her some silk and it appears in her fridge. And that was like the first time where I'm like, okay, maybe he is pretty nice, but he definitely had an odd way of showing it for a while. Yeah, like I said, I really liked the emotional element. I don't want to go into it too much because I don't want to spoil anything, but I ended up really liking Kala's relationship with her dad and thought that was such a good element to add to the story, and that aspect of it really raised my rating of it, because without that I think I probably would have given it a 2.5 or 3 stars, but because this was such a well-rounded romance with a lot of different elements to it that I like in things other than romance, I ended up really enjoying it. I think I'm going to give this one 4 stars. I know that there is a sequel, but I'm not super interested in it because I think that this ended pretty well, and I don't think the next one would be as emotional and have those extra elements. I feel like it might just be solely romance, but if anybody knows any differently or would recommend I read the second one, let me know. Overall, I did really enjoy this one just as a standalone, and like I said, I'm going to give it 4 stars. So that is The Simple Wild. We are starting off on a high note, and the next book we are going to read is Shutter Island. I'm currently halfway through Shutter Island, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about it right now. Basically, Shutter Island is about these 2 investigators, I guess, and they get assigned to this case on Shutter Island, which is an island that houses a mental institution, and this woman has gone missing from this institution, and so they have come to Shutter Island to try and find her. They're interviewing people, and they're not getting a lot of information. Nobody's very forthcoming. They can tell that they're hiding things and everything, and there's really just something off about the place. There's this other storyline where our main character, Teddy, he wanted to be assigned to this case specifically because the man that set the fire that killed his wife is also in this mental institution, and he kind of wants to confront him or something. And so that's the reason why they're there. And once they get there, they're kind of stuck. There's this big hurricane rainstorm, so they're unable to leave, even though they very quickly find the woman that was missing. I'm not really quite sure where it's going. I don't know if it's going to be paranormal or if it's just going to be creepy, but I am liking it so far. Right now, it's not my favorite thing that I've ever read, but I'm enjoying it. I like the creepy atmosphere of the setting, the island, and the storminess, and I think our main characters are interesting enough. I'm really excited to see what happens in the second half because I definitely think it's going to take off from here. But yeah, I don't have a ton of thoughts right now, but I will let you know what I think when I finish it. If I had to rate it just from the first half, I think it's probably like a 3-star. It's not blowing me away, but I am excited to see what happens in the second half. So yeah, I will let you know when I finish. Yes. I'm wearing fake freckles. I'm living my best life, okay? Leave me alone. Anyway, I did finish Shutter Island and it was really good. So up until like the very end, I kind of was not super into it. I don't always like following adult male main characters, and I think it's because I was listening to the audio as well, so I was just listening to a man drone on, and I was like, okay, this is kind of boring. And I think it would have been a little bit better if I read it physically, but the twist at the end was so insane. I did not see it coming. It like totally blindsided me that I definitely fell back more into the camp of like, this book is really good. The twist really just like shocked me and blew my mind. Honestly, it was probably one of the best twists in a book that I have ever read. Like, it was that good. That definitely elevated the reading experience for me. But even though I really loved the ending, especially like the very end, it's got an ambiguous ending too after the twist, which I was into. I thought that made it even more creepy and weird. Although I liked all of those ending bits leading up to it, it wasn't a 5-star book for me. I thought it was a little bit boring in a way. It was just, I found it difficult to care about the characters a lot. I mean, I understood his motivations and I understood that he was at this mental hospital looking for this man who supposedly murdered his wife. I just didn't really like buy into it as much as I think the book wanted or needed me to, and I thought some of his interactions with others were kind of weird. I also found some of the setting bits to be a bit confusing and difficult to picture, and that might have been partially the audiobook's fault, but it did ultimately affect my reading experience. I also expected this book to be scarier. I'm really interested in watching the film now because I feel like the film would be terrifying, because I feel like this book was just made to be a film. Like the setting of the asylum, the mental institution, and like the stormy weather, just the creepy people that you feel like are messing with your mind. I feel like that all of those elements would translate much better on screen than they did on the page, if that makes sense. So I'm very interested in watching the movie, and I don't have time to before this video goes up, but I wish I did because I would love to give my thoughts about the movie, but honestly, I really want to watch it now. So hopefully I will do that soon, and maybe I'll update it on my Instagram story or something, so follow me over there if you're interested. But anyway, overall, I did end up liking this book a lot. So I think kind of hard to rate. I kind of want to give it like a 3.5 star, and that might seem harsh, but I'm trying to be more critical of my books, and not necessarily critical in an objective sense, but just critical in a subjective sense, like how much I liked it compared to other things that I've read. And personally, this isn't like a new favorite or anything, but I did really enjoy it, and so I think I'm going to go ahead and give it 3.5 stars. I might sit on it and decide if I want to give it 4, but I think a 3.5 is a pretty solid rating. I did enjoy it. I don't really have a lot of complaints other than I just wasn't super connected to it until the end, but the ending really made up for a lot of the issues I had throughout. And just a quick warning, this book is a little bit a product of its time. It was written quite a few years ago by a man. So there are some racial slurs in this book. They aren't directed at Black people, but they are used by people that shouldn't be using them. And also there's just some kind of weird scenes with women, and women being portrayed as being crazy. I mean, men are portrayed as being crazy as well, but and also just the element of like people being crazy versus mentally ill. That term crazy is thrown around a lot, so just be aware of those things if you're interested in reading this book, and just kind of like know that that's not cool. As a whole, I did enjoy this book, and I think it's worth reading if you're interested in it, and I'm very excited to watch the movie. So that's that. And the next book we are going to be reading is Night Film, which I am super excited about, and it was probably the one I was most looking forward to out of the whole TBR, so hopefully it lives up to my expectations, but you will find out in the next couple of clips. I am just about halfway through Night Film by 𝗪cia 𝗏𝗄, and I'm really enjoying this one. This one might be my favorite so far. I think it's really good. So basically in this book we are following our main character, Scott McGrath. He is a McGrath. I don't know what his last name is. His name is Scott. But he is this investigative journalist, and he's kind of been disgraced because earlier in his career he was trying to uncover the secrets about this legendary like horror movie director, creator named Cordova, who is very secretive, very much underground. His movies are so horrifying and controversial that he was removed from Warner Brothers. He is no longer associated with them, and all of his movies can only be like found on the black market and at underground showings and that kind of thing. So he's got this very elusive nature about him, and Scott was trying to uncover the secrets, and he was immediately sued for defamation and taken down, so his career is kind of in disgrace. But when Cordova's daughter ends up committing suicide and found dead in this abandoned warehouse in New York City, Scott is relit with the fire of trying to figure out what happened, why Ashley is dead, how is it related to her family in these weird movies that her father has created throughout the years. And so in this story he meets these two characters, Nora, and I can't remember the guy's name, but there's these two. They're like younger than him. They're like 1920s, and they are helping him investigate, and they I think both know more than they're letting on. Especially the guy, he apparently knew Ashley, who is Cordova's daughter, when they were kids, and he seems to know a little bit more than he's letting on, so his character is super interesting. And then Nora is this plucky like wannabe actress living in New York, homeless, and she meets Scott, and she just kind of like latches on to this task of investigating this murder because she doesn't have anything better to do. And so we are following them throughout New York City as they find clues leading to Ashley's death, why her life was the way it was, and what led to her ultimate demise. I feel like there's also some kind of supernatural element going on because in the very beginning in the prologue, Scott is being followed by what he later discovers is Ashley, and it seems almost like she's like some kind of demon, like possessed on drugs, maybe a ghost, something of that nature. And so I kind of wonder if she's even actually dead, you know, because especially with the autopsy there are no pictures of like her identifiable features like her head and where her tattoo is and that kind of thing. I don't know, I'm kind of suspicious. I'm a little sus. Overall it's really good. I love how it's written. It almost feels like it's like you're reading true crime because it's written in almost a non-fiction kind of style following this investigative journalist, and there's mixed media interspersed throughout, captures of websites, pictures, notes, all of that kind of stuff, which makes it a really fun, interesting reading experience. And I just am a sucker for books like that, and so I just love that kind of stuff interspersed throughout. The narrative, I'm obsessed with it. I also love our characters. I think our story is super interesting, and like I said, my prediction is that Ashley is not going to actually be dead, and I also really think there's something weird going on with her dad and his films. It's almost like they're a cult or something. So I am excited to find out what I'm gonna think about this when it's all said and done, and I'm really liking it so far. this probably is the most likely to be a 5-star out of all the books in this video. So hopefully we're ending on a positive note and I like the second half just as well. Very excited to finish this one and I'll let you know what I do. I just finished Night Film and you guys, this book was so good. I absolutely loved this story. So basically in the second half, we really pick up the pace and ratchet up the intensity and everything is just so insane. The characters end up breaking into Cordova's mansion and having some like really strange, hallucinatory, traumatizing experiences, and they finally do uncover what happened to Ashley, get in contact with Cordova's assistant, and there's just some wild shit that happens. And by the end of this book, I really was in love with all of the characters. Scott was a really interesting main character, and I was so glad at the end when he kind of reconciled his relationship with his daughter Sam. I didn't really talk about that in the first clip, but he does have this really young daughter. Her name is Sam, and he and his wife are divorced, and so he kind of has limited visitation with her. And throughout this investigation, he gets so wrapped up in it that he kind of ruins his relationship with his daughter, and he kind of just keeps shoving her off on her mom instead of spending time with her. And that really disappointed me and made me not like his character very much, because I was like, just take her with you on your investigation. And I really think that his daughter was supposed to be a parallel to Ashley, and perhaps I can imagine growing into a woman like Ashley, who is Cordova's daughter, that was the one that committed suicide. And I thought that connection to her and the Cordovas was a really interesting aspect. And I feel like I haven't really had enough time to fully digest those parallels, but I do see them and I did really enjoy that aspect of this book. I also really liked the two side characters, Nora and Hopper, and I liked their resolutions and I thought they were really well done. They really carried the book, honestly. Like, Scott was a good main character, but Nora and Hopper, his little sidekick characters, were the best. I loved them so much. They were funny and like added some light and interest to the story a bit, because Scott's very much like in his own head, you know? One of my favorite aspects of this book though was just how detailed it was. I mentioned in the first clip how it really kind of read like nonfiction, and I would continue to echo that sentiment in that it just felt so well researched and thought out and well placed that it felt like it could very possibly have actually taken place in our world. And just the amount of detail and thought that was put into every aspect of this book, from the characters, the plot, down to every single detail in every single Cordova film, it was really brought to life in a way that I feel like a lot of books fall short in doing. The world building was just incredibly immaculate. I want to say this book would make a really good movie, but I feel like a movie almost wouldn't do this book justice. Like, this book was way better than a movie could be, and I just don't think making it into a movie would translate super well, but it does have a lot of elements that would be good in like a horror film. This definitely scared me more than Shutter Island did. It was unsettling in a lot of different ways, and especially with the ending being left kind of ambiguous. Like, at first you think you've solved everything, but then they hit you with the last chapter and you're like, well, what is actually the truth? I really tend to like that in stories, and so I thought that was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed that aspect of this as well. Overall, I have nothing but praise for this book. My only thing is I think it was a little long. I do think some of it could have been taken out, even though a lot of it did contribute to the rich world building. It wasn't as fast paced as I would have liked it to be, so I think it could have been edited down just a little bit and would have been a bit better, and for that reason I think I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. But it was definitely my favorite book that I read for this vlog, and I'm so happy I read it. It was so good. I loved it a lot and can really see why Caroline enjoyed it so much. So that is the end of the reading vlog portion of this video. Let's kind of do a quick little wrap up. So first things first, I'm going to rank these books really quickly. Obviously my favorite book that I read was Night Film. That takes the #1 spot. Loved this book a lot and thought it was just really good. And I feel like the more I think about it, the more I'm gonna like it. So my rating actually might end up being a 5-star when I get around to rating it on Goodreads, but we shall see. So I rated The Simple Wild and I'll Be Gone in the Dark the same. I gave them both 4 stars, but I think I did kind of like The Simple Wild just a little bit better. So I think I'm gonna put The Simple Wild in 2nd place, and then I'll Be Gone in the Dark in a very close 3rd. And then my least favorite that I read for this vlog was probably Shutter Island, but I did really like Shutter Island and still gave it 3.5 stars. So overall I would say that Caroline and I have pretty similar tastes, and I really liked all of her selections. So this was overall a very successful reading vlog, and I did want to talk a little bit about similarities that I noticed throughout and maybe reasons why Caroline and I might have a similar kind of taste. The obvious outlier here is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. This was a romance while all the rest of the books were not romance. This book I thought was really interesting because I know that Caroline also really loves Beach Read by Emily Henry, and I feel like this book also has a lot of very similar elements to it that Beach Read did. So I feel like this really gave gave me an insight into what makes a perfect romance book for Caroline. And so I feel like Caroline really likes grumpy main male characters, bubbly female main characters, and so she likes probably that whole grumpy, sunshiny, falling in love trope. But I think she also really likes some deeper elements to her romances, because both Be Treated and Simple Wild had elements of family and emotion and just some more depth to them than just like a fluffy romance might have. So I definitely see a lot of similarities between those two books, and I think it's interesting that Caroline loved both of them so much, and I definitely think there's probably some merit to those similarities. And then the rest of the 3 books, I wasn't sure how similar they would be going in, but I do think they have a lot of similar elements that make sense why they're all on Caroline's list of favorite books. So for one, I would categorize all of these as horror in a way. Even though I'll Be Gone in the Dark is nonfiction, it has elements of horror in it. And so I think that's really the big main factor connecting all of these books. Caroline maybe is more of a horror fan than like a thriller fan, and she definitely likes crime elements in her stories, and that is a common thread throughout all 3 of these books as well. I also think all 3 of these books had a very straightforward narrative, almost nonfiction style of writing, which I think is really interesting. So Caroline must prefer that style of writing. I also thought it was interesting that all 3 of these books were following some kind of investigator, whether that be an investigative journalist or a detective. All 3 of these books had main characters who fit into that category of profession, which I think is super interesting. I really like following investigative journalists and detectives as well, so I think that's why I liked a lot of these selections as much as Caroline did. That's definitely something we have in common in our tastes, and I think it was funny that all 3 of these books fit that as well. So overall, this was a very fun and successful experiment. I really enjoyed reading Caroline's favorite books and getting to know her just a little bit much better. And if you didn't know, this video is also a little collaboration. So Caroline has actually read our mutual friend Haley's favorite books, and Haley this month is reading my favorite books, so definitely go check out both of their videos. They will be linked down below, and I'm sure they would appreciate you stopping by. Thank you so much for watching my video. I really appreciate you being here as always. Definitely follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you are so inclined. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!